for the first time all season on the Ross Tucker Football Podcast Power Rankings. I put your Niners number one, man.
Oh,
the Niners is the best team in the league.
You're trying to curry favor out here in the Bay Area after you denigrated them all year long and talked up your Eagles.
I don't know that I have denigrated them all year long. But, no, I mean, I think with the Eagles losing Lane Johnson and Avonte Maddox, and then just giving up 40 points like they did, that was pretty surprising. Now, they scored 34 with Gardner Minshew. I think right now, in a best of 5 on a neutral site, I think the Niners are probably a little bit better than the Eagles right about now.
Interesting. Ross Tucker joining us on 95.7 The Game. Here's why I can't quite go there, because that means you think Brock Purdy's going to be able to win a game in Philly, in theory. And so you think he can?
Hold on a second.
Yeah.
Remember this, right? Power rankings are not the same as what I think is going to happen, right? So power rankings are just like who I think the best teams are right now.
I got you.
If they played like a 5-game series or 7-game series in like Wichita, Kansas, that is very different than the Niners having to win 3 playoff games, potentially 2 on the road, including 1 in Philly. Very, very different. If we're talking path to the Super Bowl, I would still give the Eagles the edge, because that's a big difference, really big difference. Purdy having to come to Philadelphia in a conference championship game after probably going to Minnesota, the way it would probably work out.
Well, Ross, that takes me to my first question for you, which is how important do you think the 2 seed would be for the 49ers? I know they were a game back, but they have the tiebreaker. If Minnesota loses either to Green Bay or the Bears the next 2 weeks, Niners could clean up, maybe take the 2 seed. Do you think it is important for them to have 2 home games, or do you see a Brock Purdy-led 49ers team being able to go anywhere and win the playoffs?
I feel like, Evan, if it was someone other than the Vikings, I would say I feel like it's really important. But, I know how Kyle feels about resting guys and, momentum going into the playoffs and all that stuff, and I totally get it. But I think I'd rather have my guys fully healthy, Debo and Elijah Mitchell, for the playoffs, as opposed to rushing them back, try to get the number 2 seed. I don't think there's enough of a difference between the 2 and the 3 to do that. I mean, certainly you'd rather play that game being a home game. And, who knows what happens with the 5, 6, and 7, right? You'd rather be able to play as bad a team as possible in that next round, depending on how things unfold. Maybe the Vikings lose. Who knows? Although if that's the case, then you're fine as a 3 seed anyway.
Exactly.
So I don't think it's important enough that you sell out to try to be the 2 seed over the 3 seed.
Interesting. Ross Tucker joined us on 95.7 The Game. See, I know we're not. You'd have to define it. It's like, well, would you play Elijah Mitchell if he's 75%? I get it. Those things are really hard to figure out what you would end up deciding doing. I just think it's huge. And it's not that they can't go to Minnesota. Of course they can go to Minnesota and win, but don't you just want to eliminate that entirely? Then you get rid of any. What if Minnesota does have some magic going on up there because they've won every close game this season? But what I'm getting at, 2 home games rather than just 1, I think is huge.
You know what I'm curious about, and I don't know this off the top of my head. I'm sure you guys can get somebody on, but these are the type of things we talk about on the Even Money Betting podcast. I would love, and maybe you guys already know the answer to this, I would love to know what the betting line would be. Minnesota at San Francisco in the divisional round versus San Francisco at Minnesota in the divisional round. How much of a difference does it make on the betting line?
Well, I think we have people here at the station that believe the 49ers would be the favorite in Minnesota.
Absolutely.
Okay, so let's say
it's a matter of how many points.
Let's say that's 1.5.
Within a field goal?
the Packers, okay, are 3-point favorites over the Vikings this Sunday.
Right.
The Packers, which gives you a little indicator of sort of the lack of respect, I guess,
true,
for what the Vikings have accomplished. So San Francisco in Minnesota, they're favored, I think, probably by a little bit. San Francisco in the Bay Area against the Vikings, probably closer to like 6.5.
Wow.
Well, talking about
I think you're right, though.
Yeah, no, I'm with you. I think they would be favored. I'm curious, though, because obviously, the one wild card for San Francisco, and really as it's been all season, has been the quarterback. And right now, if you just look on a piece of paper, Brock Purdy has pretty similar numbers to Jimmy Garoppolo, but the offense looks so much more dynamic and explosive. Why? What do you think the difference is between Brock Purdy and Jimmy Garoppolo? Why do you think that the Niners offense has taken a step forward as opposed to just staying the same since they have similar statistics?
I think it's on some level Purdy's mobility. I think his ability to really stress the edge on those bootlegs has added an element to the offense that they didn't have with Jimmy, and it's helped open up some of those bigger plays downfield, and it's helped the running game as well, because now you got to have somebody, waiting there on the backside of all these outside zone, these stretch runs, which just kind of thins out the whole defensive wall. I don't think anybody was ever afraid of Jimmy on a naked boot or any of these bootlegs. Whereas with Purdy, it's like, hey, we got to have an answer to this because this guy can get 5, 10, 15 yards.
Ross Tucker joining us on 95.7 The Game. He joins us every Tuesday. Let me throw this at you. We were talking about schedules, and I get it. You can only play who's in front of you, okay? But I'm going to just run off. Okay, if you said, hey, Steinmetz, who are the best teams in the NFL? All right, you ready? Buffalo. 49ers haven't played them. Kansas City, they got shellacked by the Chiefs. Cincy's really good, haven't played them. Ravens are really good, haven't played them. Dallas is really good, haven't played them. Philly, they're one of the best, haven't played them. Vikings, haven't played them. Even the Giants, they haven't played any of the top 8 or 9 teams, and the one they did drilled them. So if I just told you that right now, would you say, yeah, that doesn't matter in the playoffs, or
I would say, I didn't even realize that till you told me that, and that does matter. We're talking about, they're winning 8 games in a row, and they're killing these teams. If they haven't played very many of the top 10 teams in the league, well, then what are they really doing?
Well,
it's still impressive what they're doing, and they're putting more points up, and they're winning by double digits, and they're winning going away, and all that stuff is good. And the Commanders are not a bad team, but that is an interesting nugget that I hadn't really thought about, that their level of competition is about to get significantly increased.
Exactly.
Well, Ross, do you think then, because I feel like one of the parts about San Francisco is there is a bit of the surprise factor now with Brock Purdy. And sure, there's 3 3/4 games worth of tape, but even though the Niners haven't played any of those playoff teams that Steiny listed, do you think that there is still some advantage to the fact that other teams also haven't played San Francisco, with how physical of a football team they are, combined with the wild card that is Brock Purdy? Doesn't that also kind of give them some advantage?
Yeah, I think that's probably fair. The flip side as well, which is that they haven't played the Niners either, and had a chance to go against them and really experience what that rushing attack is like, what that D-line is like, how the Niners are playing right now. I do kind of think, though, that the Purdy part of it, after 2 more games, I guess I don't really know how much more Kyle Shanahan will kind of have up his sleeve. By the time they're playing, one of these top 6, top 7 teams, Purdy will have played 3 more games. Pretty big sample size then at that point of games that they've used him. And not quite sure how much more Kyle has left that you haven't seen from him.
Sure.
Yeah. Hey, Ross, thanks as always, man. Have a safe and happy New Year. We'll talk to you next week.
Absolutely. Take care, guys.
All right.